People love to believe intelligence is a gift, something you're either born with or you're not, because that belief gives comfort. If intelligence is luck, then effort is optional. Failure becomes acceptable. Weakness becomes excusable. But someone like AYANOKOJI was never built by comfort. He was built by design. He didn't become insanely smart because he wanted to be impressive. He became smart because survival demanded it. When there is no room for excuses, the mind either evolves or collapses. Most people have never experienced that kind of pressure. They've always had an escape, an excuse, a safety net. AYANOKOJI had none. While others were taught how to express themselves, he was taught how to suppress himself. While others were rewarded for emotion, he was punished for it. While others were told to follow rules, he was trained to understand systems. And that single difference changes everything, because smart people don't follow rules blindly. They learn why the rules exist and how to bend them without breaking themselves. AYANOKOJI learned early that emotions are expensive. Every emotional reaction costs energy. Every impulse clouds judgment. Every attachment creates a weakness. So instead of letting emotions control his actions, he learned to observe them like data. He didn't fight them emotionally. He studied them intellectually. That's how real intelligence begins. Most people confuse intelligence with knowledge. They memorize facts. They collect information. They flex vocabulary. But the moment pressure arrives, their intelligence disappears. Because knowledge without control is useless. AYANOKOJI didn't chase information. He chased clarity. Clarity comes when the mind is quiet. And the mind only becomes quiet when you stop reacting to everything around you. Noise is the enemy of intelligence. Opinions, trends, validation, fear, all noise. He removed the noise. He understood that the smartest person in the room is usually the one who speaks the least. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they don't waste words on unnecessary battles. Every word is calculated. Every silence is intentional. While others were desperate to be noticed, he learned the value of being underestimated. Being underestimated is freedom, no expectations, no pressure to perform, no eyes watching closely. When people underestimate you, they reveal their true behavior, and behavior is information. AYANOKOJI watches everything. He watches how people react under stress. He watches how they behave when they think no one is looking. He watches how power changes them. And through observation, he builds psychological maps of everyone around him. Strengths, weaknesses, motivations, limits. That's not talent. That's discipline. Most people are too busy trying to be liked to observe reality. They filter everything through ego. They want to feel important. They want to feel superior. AYANOKOJI removed that need entirely. Ego is the enemy of intelligence. The moment you feel the need to prove something, you stop learning. The moment you think you're smarter than others, you become predictable. AYANOKOJI never seeks validation. He doesn't need to feel superior. He already understands his capabilities. Confidence doesn't need noise. He also understands that intelligence isn't about winning every battle. It's about choosing which battles matter. Sometimes losing intentionally gives more control than winning openly. Sometimes stepping back creates more leverage than pushing forward. This is where most people fail. They want instant results, instant dominance, instant recognition. But intelligence plays the long game. It sacrifices short-term victories for long-term control. AYANOKOJI doesn't rush. Rushing is emotional. Patience is strategic. While others panic under uncertainty, he becomes calm. Calmness is not weakness. Calmness is the absence of fear. Fear forces people into mistakes. Calmness allows calculation. He understands that the mind performs best under pressure, only if it's trained for pressure. That's why comfort creates stupidity. Comfort dulls perception. Comfort makes the mind lazy. Comfort convinces you that you don't need to improve. AYANOKOJI was never comfortable, and that discomfort sharpened him. He learned to think several steps ahead, not because he wanted power, but because being unprepared was never an option. When failure has consequences, the brain adapts fast. It learns to predict outcomes. It learns to model scenarios. It learns to anticipate human behavior. That's what makes him insanely smart. Not IQ, but foresight. Most people live in reaction mode. Something happens, then they respond. AYANOKOJI lives in prediction mode. He calculates before events happen. When others are surprised, he's already adjusted. Surprise is a sign of poor awareness. He trains his mind by constantly questioning assumptions. He doesn't accept information at face value. He asks why. He asks who benefits. He asks what's being hidden. Truth isn't obvious. Truth is layered. That's why intelligent people are often quiet. They're processing more than they're showing. AYANOKOJI also understands that intelligence requires isolation. Not physical isolation, but mental separation. You can't think clearly when you're emotionally entangled with everyone. Attachment creates bias. Bias distorts logic. He keeps distance, not because he hates people, but because closeness clouds judgment. When you're too emotionally involved, you stop seeing reality as it is. You see it as you want it to be, and reality doesn't care what you want. He doesn't trust easily, not because he's paranoid, but because trust is leverage. Giving trust blindly is like handing someone a weapon and hoping they won't use it. Trust is earned through consistency, not words. AYANOKOJI studies patterns. Human behavior follows patterns. People repeat themselves. They fall into habits. They expose their weaknesses without realizing it. Anger reveals insecurity. Boasting reveals emptiness. Silence reveals confidence. He reads people like books, because most people never change their behavior, only their excuses. That's another reason he became smart. He doesn't lie to himself. Self-deception is the greatest form of stupidity. Convincing yourself you're fine when you're not. Blaming circumstances instead of incompetence. Calling laziness burnout. AYANOKOJI takes responsibility for everything within his control. And because of that, his control expands. He trains his body as well, not for vanity, but because physical endurance strengthens mental endurance. A weak body distracts the mind. A disciplined body sharpens focus. Pain teaches lessons comfort never will. He doesn't chase pleasure. Pleasure weakens discipline. Short-term pleasure steals long-term power. He understands that delayed gratification is a form of intelligence. If you can control your impulses, you can control your future. That's why he doesn't react emotionally to insults, losses, or praise. Praise is dangerous. It creates complacency. Insults are distractions. They pull you into unnecessary conflict. He remains neutral. Neutrality is strength. When people can't read your emotions, they can't manipulate you. When they don't know what you want, they can't control your decisions. AYANOKOJI hides his ambitions, not because he lacks confidence, but because revealing goals creates resistance. Move in silence, let outcomes speak. He also understands that intelligence grows through constant pressure. That's why he never stops testing himself. He puts himself in difficult situations deliberately. He trains his mind to operate under stress. While others avoid discomfort, he walks straight into it. Avoidance creates weakness, confrontation creates adaptation. That's how he became insanely smart, by refusing to escape difficulty. He doesn't need to dominate openly. True dominance doesn't need recognition. It operates quietly, efficiently, without ego. The scariest person isn't the loudest one, it's the one you don't notice until it's too late. AYANOKOJI doesn't seek control over people. He seeks control over himself. And once you master yourself, controlling situations becomes natural. That's the lesson most people miss. They want power without disciple. AYANA, intelligence without sacrifice, control without responsibility. It doesn't work that way. AYANOKOJI paid the price most people refuse to pay: isolation, pressure, discomfort, emotional restraint. And in return, he gained clarity, foresight, and an unshakable mind. He doesn't panic, he doesn't rush, he doesn't beg. He waits, and when he moves, it's decisive. That's how he became insanely smart. Not through luck, not through talent, but through control. Control of emotion, control of impulse, control of ego, control of attention. If you want to think like AYANOKOJI, stop asking how to be smarter. Start asking how to be more controlled. Because intelligence isn't about knowing more. It's about being unbreakable. Training your mind like AYANOKOJI doesn't begin with intelligence. It begins with honesty. Brutal honesty. The kind most people avoid because it shatters the illusion they've built about themselves. If you can't look at your own weakness without flinching, you're already disqualified. AYANOKOJI's mind wasn't trained through comfort. It was trained through exposure. Exposure to pressure. Exposure to isolation. Exposure to consequences. He didn't wait for confidence to appear. He acted without it. And that's the first lesson most people fail to learn. Confidence is not a requirement. Control is. If you want to train your mind, you must first stop obeying your feelings. Feelings are temporary. They rise, they fall, they disappear. But every time you obey them, you reinforce weakness. You teach your brain that discomfort equals danger. And once your brain believes that, it will sabotage you the moment things get hard. AYANOKOJI trained himself to sit inside discomfort without reacting. Boredom, pressure, loneliness, fatigue. He didn't distract himself from them, he let them exist. He observed how his mind behaved under stress, where it tried to escape, where it made excuses, where it lied. That observation is training. Most people try to motivate themselves. He conditions himself. Conditioning is repetition under pressure, doing what must be done even when every part of you resists. Not dramatically, not emotionally, quietly, consistently. That's how the mind hardens. To train your mind like AYANOKOJI, you must reduce emotional dependency. That means stop needing constant reassurance. Stop needing praise. Stop needing someone to notice your effort. The more external validation you rely on, the weaker your internal structure becomes. AYANOKOJI doesn't need encouragement. He operates whether he's supported or ignored. Because his standards don't come from others. They come from an internal system. You need to build that system. That system starts with rules you don't break, not goals. Rules. Goals can be postponed. Rules are absolute. AYANOKOJI doesn't negotiate with himself. When something is decided, it's executed. No emotional debate, no excuses. The moment you start negotiating with your own discipline, you lose authority over yourself. Another part of his training is silence. Not just speaking less, but thinking less unnecessarily. Mental noise weakens focus. Constant internal dialogue drains energy. Worrying about outcomes you can't control is mental masturbation. It feels active, but it produces nothing. AYANOKOJI focuses only on variables he can influence. Everything else is ignored. That level of focus is trained by cutting distractions aggressively. Social noise, useless conversations, endless entertainment. If you flood your mind with garbage, don't be surprised when it can't think clearly. A sharp mind requires emptiness. He also trains by placing himself in situations where he must think under pressure. Not simulations, real situations. Situations where mistakes have consequences. That's how adaptability is built. That's how foresight develops. Comfort doesn't teach strategy, pressure does. You don't need extreme environments to start. You need controlled difficulty. Do things that challenge your patience, your focus, your ego. Stay calm when provoked. Stay silent when misunderstood. Stay disciplined when bored. These are mental workouts. AYANOKOJI also trains his mind by mastering delay. Delay of gratification, delay of reaction, delay of judgment. He doesn't rush to conclusions. He gathers information. He waits for patterns to reveal themselves. People reveal more when you let them talk, so listen more than you speak. Watch more than you act. Think more than you react. That's training. He also understands that intelligence grows when you stop identifying with your thoughts. Thoughts are not commands, they're suggestions. Most people are slaves to their thoughts. Every negative idea feels like truth. Every doubt feels real. AYANOKOJI observes thoughts without obeying them. He lets them pass. He chooses actions based on logic, not mental noise. That detachment is critical. Another key element of his training is emotional neutrality. not emotional emptiness, neutrality. He doesn't suppress emotions violently. He doesn't indulge them either. He lets them exist without letting them influence decisions. Anger doesn't control him. Fear doesn't rush him. Pleasure doesn't distract him. Neutrality gives freedom. To train this, you must practice restraint. Don't respond immediately. Don't defend yourself instantly. Don't explain unnecessarily. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you gain control. AYANOKOJI also trains his mind by accepting loneliness. High-level thinking isolates you. When you stop being emotionally reactive, you become harder to relate to. When you stop seeking approval, people feel uncomfortable around you. That's normal. Most people would rather be accepted than be effective. AYANOKOJI chooses effectiveness every time. Isolation strengthens self-reliance, and self-reliance is the foundation of mental power. He also studies failure differently. Failure doesn't attack his identity, it provides feedback. He doesn't emotionally collapse after losing. He dissects what went wrong, he adjusts, then he moves forward. No drama, no self-pity. Self-pity is intellectual suicide. Training your mind means removing emotional attachment to outcomes. Do your best. Analyze results. Improve. Repeat. Whether you win or lose emotionally is irrelevant. He also limits emotional exposure. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. Not everyone deserves your trust. Oversharing weakens leverage. Mystery protects it. AYANOKOJI speaks only when necessary. He reveals only what benefits the situation. Information is power. Giving it away freely is stupidity. To train like him, you must become selective. With your words, with your energy, with your attention. Attention is currency. Spend it wisely. Another critical element is physical discipline. Not for appearance, for control. When your body obeys you under fatigue, your mind follows. Physical discomfort trains mental endurance. Cold, hunger, exhaustion, routine. You don't need extremes, you need consistency. AYANOKOJI's mind is strong because it's familiar with discomfort. Comfort feels foreign to him. That's why pressure doesn't break him. If you want that strength, stop designing your life for ease. Design it for growth. He also avoids emotional attachments that compromise judgment. Desire clouds logic. Obsession narrows vision. Dependency creates fear of loss. AYANOKOJI keeps distance so he can see clearly. This doesn't mean you avoid relationships. It means you don't let them control your decisions. Control is always internal. Finally, AYANOKOJI trains his mind by thinking long-term. He doesn't optimize for today. He optimizes for outcomes that matter years later. Short-term pleasure is sacrificed for long-term leverage. That's why he's patient. That's why he's calm. That's why he's dangerous. If you want to train your mind like AYANOKOJI, stop chasing motivation, stop chasing inspiration, stop chasing validation. Start building control. Control over emotion, control over impulse, control over attention, control over reaction. Because when you control these, intelligence follows naturally. Not flashy intelligence, not loud intelligence, but the kind that wins before anyone realizes a game is being played. And by the time they notice, it's already over.